Hello everybody, it's Mr. Second Amendment and I'm doing a virtual video. We're not at the range today and I wanted to cover co-witnessing again. I have my original video. I'll put that link in the description. Some people found it useful. There was still some questions. I was trying to help out in the comments, but it was clear I had to do another video. So I've got some more high-speed graphics here and we're going to open up at the range. And basically what's happening is we're talking about a setup where you have a front and rear iron sight, and then you have a red dot or a holographic optic of some kind. This picture here is of my current setup. It's a Comp ML3 aim point on a LaRue LT150 mount, which is set up to be a lower thirds co-witness mount, or to give you that kind of co-witness, and we'll discuss that. And my rear sight is just a standard Maytech Army issue standard rear sight, which may or may not be beneficial to you depending on what you're doing, and we'll go over that. But anyway, let's go back to the range. Let's go ahead and put a target out. We got the standard 25 meter zeroing target, and I'm going to be doing a video soon on how to use this target and how to get a 25 meter Army zero on your AR-15 for those that are interested. I've had some of you guys asking. I'm not going to get into the weeds on it, but that's what the target looks like, and we're going to put it back out there on the range. And first we're going to go ahead and introduce the different characters you're going to see here. So first we got our front sight post. This is going to be just this is what it looks like obviously as you're aiming. This right here is just a standard A-frame front sight post. Some of you guys may have a flip up front sight, which is cool. I'm assuming most of you guys probably have the standard A-frame front sight base, and this is what it would look like when it's there. So I'm going to show you the rear sight. Again, this is the type of rear sight that I use, is just that standard Maytech rear sight. So I'm going to put it off to the side so you can check it out. This is what it would look like. I know I got these like high-speed graphics here, so I apologize. It's a little bit crude, but I think it kind of gets the point across. So now I'm going to go ahead and put the rear sight where it should go if I'm actually lining up my target. So what you notice right now is you see that I'm aiming a little bit low, and this is more of a side note. This is not really part of the co-witness discussion. I just wanted to bring that up, that I do what's called a 6 o'clock hold, and it's more of a target shooting method. You'll see it in national match and high power, but it allows me to see a difference. Like there's a distinct difference between the silhouette target that I'm actually trying to hit and my front sight post. And my preference is to leave a little tiny thin piece of white between my post and the silhouette. Now, in terms of where the bullet's going to impact, I always want them to impact at that lime green circle that I just put up. So that's where the bullets are actually going to be impacting. But I'm purposely holding a little bit lower, and I'm adjusting my sights so that the bullets do impact in the green circle. But that's more of a side note. Now, most of you guys probably don't use a 6 o'clock hold. That's probably not your thing, and that's okay. We're going to cast this aside. I'm going to show you. I'll bring up a picture. This is what you guys are probably actually doing. This is cutting the target in half. If you were in the military or law enforcement or even Boy Scout camp or taking an NRA rifle course or whatever the case, this is probably what you were taught. This is probably the method that you use. It's generally the more common method, and we're going to stick with this for the rest of the video. But you're cutting the target in half, and you can kind of see right now why I don't prefer this one, just because, at least with my eyes, they're not as good as they used to be, and it's kind of hard to make a distinction between the front sight post and the target. If my front sight post is black and I'm shooting at a black silhouette or circle, it's a little bit hard to figure out, am I exactly cutting it in half? Am I a little bit high or low? Especially with this target and a standard AR-15 front sight post at 25 meters, it actually tends to be just about the same thickness or width. So it gets a little bit difficult for me, but this is probably how most of you guys do it, and that's totally cool. We're just going to roll with this for the rest of the video. And I'm going to show the green circle again. Where we want the bullets to impact has not changed. We're just holding cutting it in half. We're just holding differently now as opposed to the 6 o'clock hold that I like to personally use. But you can see we only see the top half of the green circle, and that's just how this hold works if you're going to zero using this hold. So we're going to move on and just continue the press forward. So now I'm going to bring in the red dot optic, and we're going to set up this. What you're looking at now is an absolute CoWitness. So what we have going on at this time is the iron sights. We had them lined up just like you saw, cutting the target in half. But now we've mounted a red dot optic onto our upper receiver. So at the very far end of the gun, we got the front sight. In the middle, we have the red dot or EOTech or whatever it is. And then closest to us as the shooter, we have our flip up or back up rear sight. So when you have your front sight up, or it's there anyway because you don't have a choice, you have your red dot mounted and turned on, and you have your rear sight flipped up. That is right here is what the sight picture is going to look like for you. This is called an absolute CoWitness. The center of the view screen of your optic is exactly on the same sight line as your iron sights. Now, like I said in the previous video, there's a lot going on here. It's really busy. You got front sight, red dot, housing, rear sight. It's all happening all at once in the same location. And it's not my preference. It's not what I choose to do. So now the next thing I'm going to show you with the absolute CoWitness, and I'm just going to warn you here, there's a lot of preferences involved, and I would urge you to just go out there and test it out and see what you like. But we're seeing the absolute CoWitness when both iron sights are flipped up, the red dot is on. But I'm going to show you, this is what it would look like for an absolute CoWitness when you flip down the rear sight, when you have flipped it down. So now all we're dealing with is the red dot itself and the front sight post. Some dudes will flip down their front sight, so they'll get their absolute CoWitness and then they'll fold down both front and rear. Some guys, a lot of guys that are stuck with the A-frame front sight base, this is what their absolute CoWitness actual shooting sight picture is going to look like. Then they're really just using the red dot, and some guys, the A-frame is there, front sight base is there just because it has to be. That's the rifle they have. Other guys, they prefer to have it there as a reference point. They like to do the lollipop, or just put the lollipop red dot on top of the front sight post, and they always like to keep it there as just a constant reference point. And a lot of times you see that, especially if you have more of a budget red dot optic, depending on the quality of the lenses and everything like that, you may really have to or really want to keep that red dot in the center of the view screen, or keep it always referenced on top of the front sight post. That is something you may want to do. If you have something like an aim point or an EOTech, something of that level, it does not matter where in the view screen that you see that red dot. That is where the rounds are going to go. So some guys do this out of comfort or preference, that they just like to have the front sight post kind of as a reference point always there. Some guys, law enforcement or military, they're issued a rifle that has a fixed A-frame front sight base. There is no such thing as folding down the front, and they just kind of have to deal with it. Some guys prefer it. So anyway, this is what your active shooting sight picture looks like if you have your absolute CoWitness and you have chosen to fold down your rear sight. So now we're going to move to a lower thirds CoWitness. So what does that look like? So you've noticed that the aim point, or the red dot, has been mounted on the rifle a little bit higher, and it's using a mount that elevates the red dot sight just a little bit higher than absolute CoWitness was doing. So now we are utilizing the lower third of the view screen. That's where it gets its name, the lower thirds CoWitness. And this is what it looks like when you have both your iron sights flipped up and you're using the red dot at the same time. So yes, it's all coming together. Everything is working together in the same location, but it's happening at the lower thirds. So what's the deal? Why do people like myself do this? How does this work? Well, in real life, what I'm actually doing is I'm flipping down the rear sight, and I'm only using the red dot. So when I'm actually shooting with a lower thirds CoWitness, everything was lined up and everything was consistent in the lower third of the view screen. But what I'm actually using is this, and you can see The front sight post is still there, but it's out of my way. I have a more clear view of the target, and all I'm using to actually score hits and do work is just the red dot. The rear sight has been flipped down. Some guys prefer to keep the rear sight up, or they'll even get a fixed rear sight. That's a lot of preference there. Just depends what you want to do. But this is what your active working sight picture would look like if you have a lower thirds CoWitness and you've decided to flip down the rear sight and it's out of the way. So moving on, going back to the picture here, you can see this is what the lower thirds looks like when you've decided to line everything up and it's all coming together. But going back to the sight picture of what you're actually going to use when you use a lower thirds CoWitness, and this is why I prefer it. There's just less going on. It's less busy. It's not like the absolute CoWitness where everything is all up and it's happening all at the same place at the same time. So that's just what you get out of a lower thirds. Now, the whole point here is if you're shooting, the whole purpose of having a CoWitness is if something happens to your optic and the battery dies or something happens or it gets cracked or whatever and you got to dismount it off the rifle real quick. But let's just say I'm shooting, then bam, the battery dies and all of a sudden I have no more red dot. It's gone. All I have to do is flip up the rear sight and just line up my iron sights and I'm back in business. I'm just shooting through the dead glass, or I removed the optic because it was shattered and now I'm just using iron sights. But that's the whole point of that. Now, if the battery was on and I could magically turn it back on, then again, this is what it would look like where everything is lining up. So hopefully that gave more answers than more questions. I'm going to be hanging out in the comments here and there trying to help out. Hopefully the graphics and the visuals helped out a little bit. Pretty soon here I'm going to have some videos on zeroing, and I think you guys are going to enjoy. So thanks for watching.